Good morning. Welcome to Vince on a Wednesday. It is great to have you with us. It is a big day. We're going to have a big show. Jim Jordan is going to join us on the program. He's the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. I'm not wearing my jacket today because I know he's not wearing his jacket today. No, we don't wear jackets. Not when Jim Jordan is on the program. In fact, I'm going to make a prediction. Let me see. Light blue Oxford shirt, no jacket. That's the plan. We will see when he joins us coming up. The reason it's such a big deal to have Jim Jordan with us today is because the House Judiciary Committee has just revealed even further the extent to which the Biden-led United States Department of Justice was trampling all over your civil liberties and attacking the entire institution of the right, all of the basically organizational principles of the American right. The Biden DOJ was trying to attack them. I've got the details. We've got the interview. It's all ahead on this edition of Vince. Also, we're going to dive into just how callous the left is being. Right now, they've advanced the government shutdown into, what is it? Day 29. We're in day 29 of the government shutdown. And the effect of that is, well, lots of people aren't getting paid, and that includes members of the military, air traffic controllers, immigration, law enforcement, lots of good Americans not getting paid right now. And food stamps are about to disappear. Democrats say that's the point. They want more human suffering. I've got all the details all ahead on this big edition of Vince. Great to have you with us, the best audience anywhere. In the chat, China is asshole. I totally agree. Thank you. Very nice way to get us started today. Yeah, the president of the United States is meeting with Xi Jinping, which is a name that's fun to say. He'll be doing that Thursday. That'll be, I guess, overnight tonight in South Korea. He'll be meeting with Xi Jinping. That's a very big meeting, a very important one as he's there in Asia, because this will settle up, hopefully, for the time being, the trade relationship that the president is fighting for between the United States and China. So we'll keep our eyes on that as the president is on that journey. Speaking of the White House, the vice president of the United States is en route to Ole Miss today. I believe he's got a big Turning Point USA event, which is a lot of fun. We'll keep our eyes on that as well. They stay busy in this Trump White House. But let me begin today with some of the news that's developed here in the last 24 hours. And we get updates now on the auto pen presidency. And here's a question that you and I have had, which is, how much of Biden's presidency could even be considered legitimate? In other words, how often did Joe Biden's name get affixed to a piece of legislation, or, say, pardons of his entire family, or people like Dr. Fauci or Liz Cheney or any of these other idiots? How often did his signature not carry any weight whatsoever because his mind wasn't behind it? His hand wasn't behind it. Other people were operating a robot at the White House in order to sign documents without his knowledge. So could we just nullify all of that garbage? Well, the answer to that is starting to develop. Yesterday, the United States House Oversight Committee set a criminal referral to the United States Department of Justice, saying that the Biden auto pen signatures may be void entirely. And the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, responded immediately and said that there is an ongoing investigation into President Joe Biden's use of a digital auto pen. This announcement coming yesterday after that Tuesday House report cast doubt on the validity of the criminal pardons, the Daily Caller reporting. The House Oversight Committee recommended that the United States Department of Justice investigate the pardons and any other executive orders that may have relied on his staff's auto pen in the report, saying that the orders cannot all be deemed his own. Biden's pardons of his son and other family members and clemency orders for violent criminals present the most glaring concerns, the report says. Here's a really simple way to think about this. If you are not the president of the United States, are you constitutionally allowed to pretend to be? No. In fact, that's a total violation of the Constitution. You weren't elected to that role. You are not vested with Article 2 powers because you are not the president of the United States. So no, you can't do that. And in fact, as far as I'm concerned, that has to trip every criminal prosecution, every criminal element that you could imagine to be play acting as the president of the United States, fraudulently conducting the affairs of the United States government when you're in no position to do that. Remember, the Biden administration, the left, was constantly trying to go after President Trump and remember General Mike Flynn. They said, "Oh, he's negotiating on behalf of the United States without actually being in the government yet." That they violated. Remember the Logan Act? You remember this thing? The Logan Act. That he was conducting the affairs of the United States presidency even though they weren't in the government. Now, never mind the fact that he was the incoming national security advisor to the president of the United States. He was, of course, the kind of guy who should clearly be conducting negotiations and conversations on behalf of the incoming duly elected president of the United States. And the left set about trying to destroy his life. And he was doing everything legitimate, And here you have an entire administration that's doing everything illegitimately. The president of the United States, Joe Biden, is non compos mentis. That's Latin for his brain don't work. That's what it is. His brain didn't work. He couldn't do the job. And so they're signing documents left and right with auto pens, pretending that he knows anything about them. He doesn't. He doesn't know anything about them. He has no idea who he pardoned. He has no idea who at all what kind of legislation they were signing with this thing. And now this thing is getting to the next level, which is good news. The House Oversight Committee says, wait a second, all of this may be completely invalidated. And the United States Department of Justice is adding this entire saga, this thing, to their mission list. Yep, we're going after it. The House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer's new information is extremely helpful, said Pam Bondi. And his leadership on this issue, it's invaluable. We'll continue working with the committee to deliver accountability for the American people. Good news. And it's the Justice Department. You know, you and I have been placing a lot of pressure on this Justice Department. Hey, come on, get it done. Accountability. And the good news we have to report this year is we are seeing people prosecuted. We've seen a number of indictments against James Comey, against Letitia James, against John Bolton. Now we have a criminal referral against John Brennan. By the way, Jim Jordan and the Judiciary Committee last week, they're the ones who made the criminal referral against John Brennan for lying to Congress. I'll ask Congressman Jordan about this coming up. And the United States Department of Justice is immediately on top of it, which is why a lot of us believe that John Brennan could be the next shoe to drop, that the former CIA director could be the next one prosecuted. Good. Love it. More. That's what we're looking for. And here on this Biden presidency, it's not a small thing. It's not a small thing at all that massive numbers of people were being pardoned in what looks like a very corrupt arrangement by an administration where the president of the United States didn't have his wits about him. So that's a very important piece of information. Good to see this thing developing. Additionally, we get brand new information out of, speaking of Jim Jordan, out of the Judiciary Committee, we get brand new information about something called Arctic frost overnight. And that information tells us that the United States Department of Justice under Joe Biden was targeting the organizational principles of the conservative right. So let me just give you a basic detail here. The documents that were released yesterday, there were nearly 200 pages of records released yesterday. This comes to us from the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, led by Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. They hand over to the United States House of Representatives a massive tranche of documents about Jack Smith and the Justice Department under Joe Biden. And what they reveal is during this so-called Arctic frost investigation, which was dedicated nominally into looking at election meddling in the 2020 election, it was designed to go after the right, not the left, which is hilarious and so crazy and such an inversion of the truth. In this process, they were targeting more than 150 Republican officials and allies. And they were targeting them for surveillance and criminal prosecution and to upend their lives. And among the organizations that was targeted was something called the Conservative Partnership Institute. The Conservative Partnership Institute. Now, the great Sarah Bedford at the Washington Examiner pulled one of the documents here and posted this to X yesterday afternoon as the news was breaking. And she says the following: the FBI was looking into the head of the Conservative Partnership Institute because he, quote, hates the FBI and was, quote, anti-Biden. CPI, Conservative Partnership Institute, provides training for conservative congressional staffers to do stuff like oversight, which is not really civil war. Yeah, they were going after a fellow called Ed Corrigan. Ed Corrigan is a great conservative. He's been in Washington for many years. He's been working on behalf of the conservative movement for a very long time. And the Conservative Partnership Institute, which he founded, for those who don't know, and most people don't actually, if you are somebody who is a conservative who's worked in Washington, if you've worked on a congressional staff for Republicans, if you've worked in the Senate, you know the Conservative Partnership Institute. And fundamentally, it's basically a gathering place. It's meant to be the connecting tissue on the right. There's all sorts of organizations on the right. Everyone has, slightly different agendas. They're all working towards different things, or they have different focuses, whatever. There is places like the Conservative Partnership Institute are, by definition, it's literally in their name, designed to bring those groups together, to get them to have conversations, to see where they agree, and then get everybody rowing in the same direction. That's kind of it. It's just an opportunity to continue to work for conservative values and to advance the success of conservative politics. And so, in other words, it's exactly what you would expect a political operation to be doing. That's it. It's just a policy shop. And they do trainings with members of Congress and their staffs on how to do oversight and how to do their jobs in Congress. Perfect. So what is this? It's the FBI under Joe Biden attacking that. This is the connecting tissue of the right. It's an all-out assault on conservatives. This is what the FBI was doing with its time. Now, I'm happy to say that the FBI has radically changed its mission since the left was in control of it. Now they're arresting violent criminals by the thousands. Now they're prosecuting people who have committed crimes even in very high positions of power, like James Comey, Letitia James, and John Bolton. It's a total sea change, and it's once again a focus on what actually matters. But these types of attacks, this brand new information that's coming out, really, as far as I'm concerned, should form the basis of more criminal prosecutions. Let's get Jack Smith in. Let's get all these guys in for criminal prosecutions. Let's see some indictments for these fellows, because they are pretty obviously trampling the civil liberties of people on the basis merely of their political views. Oh, you disagree that they didn't like how the 2020 election was conducted? That's really the substance of this? That's not substance at all. It's not criminal to object to the way that ballot boxes were being wielded in 2020. It's not criminal to object to the fact that the Hunter Biden story was suppressed by the media and the big social media companies in 2020. That's not criminal at all. It's not criminal to file objections in court to call for audits of elections. That's not criminal. That's constitutional. It is your right as an American citizen, and certainly as an American candidate, to say, hey, was that election conducted fairly? That forms the basis of criminal prosecutions? Well, not in a just country, but in an unjust one with a tyrannical Justice Department and a tyrannical FBI led by the American left who's abusing its power to trample the civil liberties of American citizens. That's the way things get done. And that's the way things were done. And speaking of criminal prosecutions, those guys deserve it. So we are finding all of this out. I will talk coming up with, like I said, with Jim Jordan about all of this because he's the guy who got a hold of all of these documents from the FBI, which is very good news. Now, speaking of the FBI Director Kash Patel is responding to all of this. My friend Kevin Roberts is the president of the Heritage Foundation, and he was talking about how the Conservative Partnership Institute is being attacked here. And he said the fact that that these documents exist is an indictment of the FBI, not my friend Ed Corrigan, he writes. He said, I hope that FBI Director Kash Patel and FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino will look into this right away. And sure enough, in no time at all, you get this statement from Kash Patel. He says this, every day this FBI is releasing documents like these to give the public full view of what happened, work with Congress to right the wrongs, and hold accountable anyone who acted unethically, period. Corruption like this is being crushed in your federal government day by day. It's a new era. The most important part of that statement you get from the FBI director, I think, is hold accountable. Hold accountable anyone who acted unethically, period. Accountability to me and to you means criminal charges. It means a real criminal investigation by the FBI and real criminal charges by the United States Department of Justice. So far, we've seen evidence that they definitely have an appetite to do that. Again, please, more. It's the only way to get our country back to, by the way. That really is the key. If people feel like they can trample your civil liberties and crap all over the Constitution and get away with it, they're going to do more of it. It's an incentive structure. So let's create a disincentive structure. Don't break the law or else feel the full weight of it come down on you. Nobody's above the law. Nobody should be. And on the right, we actually believe that. More ahead on this exciting edition of Vince. I got to talk to you about what the Democrats are up to with this government shutdown because there's a lot of people who are due for some suffering coming up in just days. You know, food stamps are going to disappear for millions of Americans who rely on food stamps. These are people who don't have the means to afford food, so they're relying on government assistance to do that. Because of the Democrats, that's going to disappear in a moment. And the Democrats love it. They're bragging about it. In fact, they keep saying, your suffering is our leverage. Let's talk about what's going on here as we await Congressman Jim Jordan coming up. We've got an ongoing federal shutdown. We're on day 29 of this bad boy. And first and foremost, insofar as there are silver linings, it's been a great opportunity for the Trump administration to fire some of the deadbeats in the federal government to the tune of just over 4,000 people at least who've been canned. Now, we have a massive federal government with a lot of waste, and we do need to shrink it down meaningfully. We need to do a controlled burn of our federal government. No question whatsoever. But one of the issues that the Trump administration is running into right now is you've got federal judges who are diving in the way of Trump's victories. They're blocking the president's ability to fire more people. In fact, we just got another one of these this week. A federal judge has blocked the Trump administration from firing more federal workers amid the shutdown, despite the fact that Russ Vought is trying to do this thing. A federal judge has blocked the Trump administration yesterday, Tuesday, from firing federal workers during the shutdown. U.S. District Judge Susan Ilston, a Clinton appointee in San Francisco, has extended her earlier order preventing the terminations, saying you can't do that. This is illegal. That ruling, according to the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME, that ruling is a victory for federal workers, they claim. This is a big federal employees union. They love that this is getting stopped. The White House Budget Office told agencies earlier to prepare for large-scale layoffs. Large-scale layoffs. So here you have another federal judge diving in the way of the Trump administration, securing victories for the American people. Now, here's the interesting thing about all this. The president is not a king. Despite the horse shit that you hear from the left on this subject, not a king, president of the United States. And so what is he doing about this? They're appealing. They're now appealing in the 9th U.S. Circuit in order to see if they can get this thing turned around. They're working within the court process as we speak to get this ability to fire federal employees back up and running. So in case you're wondering, like, what's the status of that? Are they firing federal employees? Yes, they have been. But now a Clinton judge has dived in front of the president's ability to try and improve our country, So the president's working through the court process right now to try and get things back up and running. Because unlike that judge, unlike Democrats, unlike the Biden DOJ, Donald Trump, as president of the United States, respects the Constitution and he respects the branches of government, and he is once again working within them, as frustrating as it is, to try and secure victories for the American people. So that's the status there. Meanwhile, the federal workers' unions, speaking of the federal unions, they're getting annoyed that the government remains closed. And now they're starting to place pressure on the Democrats to get the damn government back open. Take a look here. Cut 1. Here's the largest federal workers union is saying, hey, we got to get this government back up and running. Watch as Democrat senators are saying, tough, I don't care.
Does that change your position?
It doesn't change it, but it's a real indication of how this is really tough on people. And that's why it's really important for the president to get involved, because he's the key person here. He's literally not involved. And this is a very simple situation to resolve. But you know, in Vermont, we're going to get the highest premium increases in the nation, so this will be brutal. The ideal here is we sit down and solve it.
But why not do what they're asking, which is open the government now, negotiate later?
They've made it clear they won't negotiate. I don't believe that. I mean, Speaker Johnson isn't even here, and he's made it clear that he has no interest in addressing the tax credits that are necessary for families to buy their home.
So that's Democrat Senator Welch of Vermont, and he's saying, no, we're not opening the government. To hell with the employees union asking for us to open up the government. And these guys are their position here on why they're not opening the government. It runs the gambit, but it's all either just callous disregard for human suffering, or we're going to lie about who shut the government down to begin with. For instance, Cory Booker. Here's Cory Booker, the idiot governor, idiot senator from New Jersey. He's blaming Republicans for Democrat obstruction, because remember, Republicans are the ones who keep voting to reopen the government. They're like, actually, we think we should pay the troops. Actually, we do want to see food stamps go to hungry people. Cory Booker saying that this suffering that his own party is causing, that belongs to the Republicans. Watch.
Whip Clark said the Democrats are keeping the government shut down so you guys can use this time for leverage. But now nearly 2 million Americans are going to go without paychecks at the end of the week. Do you have any comment on this? Can you explain how this leverage actually benefits the American people?
I'm really confused by your question. The President of the United States controls the White House. The Republicans in the House and the Senate have shown their willingness to do a form of yoga I've never seen, to bend over backwards and do whatever he wants them to do. So when you control the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives, this is their shutdown. Democrats are doing what the minority party has always done, which is saying, we've got to come together and work a way forward. But Donald Trump doesn't even want to work with us.
A great question from Lindell TV asking Cory Booker about this, and then Cory Booker immediately does what he does best, which is lies. He just lies. That, Republicans shut the government down. It's a Republican shutdown. You idiot. First of all, nobody believes you. Nobody believes you. And secondly, it's your filibuster. It's you. It's you. You're the reason the government shut down. Republicans keep voting to open up this thing with each passing day. Sheldon Whitehouse, who's also a bad person, said that pressure on working families is the only lever. Is the only lever they have. Look at it, cut 5 here. Sheldon Whitehouse bragging about how, quote, working families are suffering right now.
Why are working families the leverage the Democrats need to get Obamacare fixed, to get the Republicans to fix Obamacare? Why is that the place you guys have to go that far?
It's the only lever we have. And frankly, it wouldn't be a lever at all if Republicans were being reasonable and doing exactly what they should be doing for the sake of their own constituents.
He's so disgusting. Everything about that guy's disgusting. And then he gets into the elevator, he gets into his private jet, he heads back home to his all-white club. He's Senator White Club. There he is. He's a ridiculous and callous human being. He's deeply callous. He's not the only one. Chris Coons also took this position, cut 6 here. He said, look, your misery, if you're experiencing misery right now, not getting a paycheck, not getting food stamps, look, it's our only leverage, so we're going to use it. Watch.
Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House. Frankly, this is our only moment of leverage. And although a very unpleasant tool to use,
it's all our only moment of leverage, so we got to use it. How gross are these guys? Now, how are the American people reacting to this? They're with Trump. They're with Trump. The survey numbers the polling numbers on this are really clear. Donald Trump and the Republican Party are going up right now in approval ratings. Up. Watch this. Here's from CNN's enthusiastic numbers guy, Harry Enton, explaining that Donald Trump is doing very well in the midst of this shutdown. Watch, cut 3.
You might think, given that the Republicans are in charge of both the House and the Senate, that a government shutdown might actually hurt the Republican brand. But in fact, it hasn't. If anything, it's been helped a little bit. Take a look here, the shift in net popularity versus pre-shutdown. When we're looking at the Republican Party overall, that brand actually up 2 points. That's within the margin of error, but clearly it hasn't dropped. Come over to this side of the screen. Look at the net approval ratings for Republicans in Congress. It's actually up 5 points since pre-shutdown.
How did that happen? How did that happen? How is it that President Trump's approval rating has gone up during the shutdown? How is it that Republican Party approval rating is going up during the shutdown? How does this happen? And the answer to that is we are winning. We are winning. The legacy media are losing. It didn't used to be this way. In fact, in the past, during a shutdown like this, regardless of the culpability of Democrats, Republicans would be stuck with the blame by the legacy media. The distortion filter of the legacy media has been powerful and immense. The stranglehold that the legacy press held on the American mind was pretty big, pretty big. This is why it matters so much that independent media is breaking through at levels we've never seen before. Americans are more attuned than ever to the truth of what's actually going on in Washington. They're scrutinizing D.C. at levels that we've never seen before, with technology that enables it at a level that's never been possible. This moment is an amazing exposition of just how far we've come as a country in a good direction. The reality here is Americans are blaming Democrats for the shutdown because they deserve blame for the shutdown. And they're measuring their thoughts on this subject based on the totality of the evidence. Do we want to see the president use the government shutdown effectively in order to shrink the federal government? Yes, of course. Should the federal government come back and negotiate a budget that shrinks how much they're spending? 100%. But simultaneously, you and I being able to think through the details here and being aware of all of the facts, know that, yes, there are decent people within the federal government who are suffering as a result of this. There's no reason that an enlisted service member with a young family should not be receiving paychecks right now. What a horrific situation to have to be in. And there's no reason that people should have to go hungry because Democrats are demonstrating such a callous disregard for their lives and their well-being. That is horrific, it's disgusting, and it's completely brazen. The American people are seeing right through this. And that's the reason they're sticking once again with President Trump. And that's the reason you're seeing such a panic attack on the American left, which really has no plan. The plan right now is to continue to bring us into the descent of chaos. And there's no political upside to that move. It's all downside for them and for the rest of us. Kind of wild. All right, more ahead. I've got Congressman Jim Jordan joining us in just a moment. We're going to talk to him. He's the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. Looking forward to that because I want to get the latest on everything that he's revealing about the abuses of the Biden Justice Department. Brand new information on that subject. Hold on for that. But first, Congressman Jim Jordan is on the program. Congressman, good to have you with us today, sir.
Good to be with you, Vince.
All right, let's talk about the government shutdown real quick.
Sure.
I've been pointing out that this is a very callous thing that these Democrats are doing, and nobody's buying what they're selling. I can't tell you the number of these lawmakers, your colleagues, who I've seen making claims like this suffering that people are undergoing right now is our leverage. That's the only leverage we have. Have you ever seen anything so brazen, so callous, so heartless coming out of Washington?
No, and I don't know that the American people have either. And that's why I think, as you pointed out, the polling actually indicates that there's more confidence, more support for Republicans, less for Democrats. Because as you said, I think the American people have common sense. And they can see that when you had a party who supported a continuing resolution, a funding bill that funded the government at the current levels, that a party who voted for that 6 months ago but won't vote for the same darn thing now, they rightly, I think, figured out that that's the problem. It's the Democrats. It's Chuck Schumer who's having this debate with himself. Chuck Schumer against Chuck Schumer. He voted for it 6 months ago. He won't now. And because they're so against Trump and they got to do something. So I think the country's figured it out. And hopefully the Democrats will at some point. We can get on with things.
So what happens? I mean, so November 1st, most of the states say that they're not going to have the money for the food stamps that people rely on to feed their families. I mean, do Democrats like grow a heart at that point? Is at any point they're like, okay, maybe we should reopen the government? What's going to happen in the next week?
Well, I think I mean, who knows? I mean, this could go on for who knows how much longer, but I think they're probably looking to what happens on November. They keep talking about the notices on certain Obamacare premiums, that those are going to go out, and they expect them to ratchet up some. I think they're looking to that. They may be waiting for the election next Tuesday to find out how they do in Virginia, how they do in New Jersey, and of course how they do in New York City. I don't know. I think they're pretty dug in, but I think this is driven by the simple fact that the hard left now controls their party. I always say not all Democrats are crazy, but the radical left is, and they now have control of one of the two major political parties, and they are pushing Schumer to do this. I mean, the idea that Schumer may get a primary in a couple years for his Senate seat, that there's talk of actually Leader Jeffries getting a primary as well. I think that's driving some of this. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I think this could go for certainly into next week, maybe longer.
This Obamacare subsidy thing that they're fighting for, they claim that this is the key thing that they really want. And I just want to explore this with you for a moment because this is how I understand it. Obamacare gets passed, of course, during the Obama administration. It's called the Affordable Care Act. History has demonstrated that it's not affordable at all. In fact, it made healthcare prices skyrocket. And in 2021, Joe Biden and the Democrats, under the cover of COVID, they pass these subsidies. And the subsidies are designed to conceal how expensive Obamacare is. Basically, stealing from taxpayers and then artificially bringing down premiums and pretending like Obamacare is affordable. It is not.
Right.
So if I understand the sequence of events correctly, what Democrats are trying to fight for right now is how big the ongoing cover-up of this is going to be. Like how the cover-up of how expensive Obamacare is going to be. Like, can we steal more money from the American taxpayer to cover up Obamacare? Is that what this is?
Yeah, further subsidize how bad and concealing how bad the Obamacare is. You're exactly right, Vince. Remember when everything they told us about Obamacare when they passed it, I don't know, 15 years ago, everything they told us turned out to be false. Remember they said, if you like your plan, you can keep your plan. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. Premiums will go down. The President Obama even said premiums will go down on average $1,500. Well, none of that turned out to be true. So they had to, first they expand it, then they add the subsidy, now they extend the subsidy, and now they want to extend it again to do exactly what you described, to mask just how bad this really is. When what we think should happen is quit subsidizing something that's failing, and instead go back to some reforms that actually empower families, empower patients, whether it's health savings accounts, whether it's more access to high deductible plans that many young families want to purchase at lower cost. Those are the kind of things that we think make sense, but no. They just want to keep masking this and subsidizing it. And the subsidy doesn't go to the family. It goes to the insurance company, a further way that they can hide just how bad this whole thing has turned out to be.
Yeah, how about that? That's amazing. And just further evidence, like what they're really doing is they will starve Americans until they can orchestrate a cover-up with their money.
Yep.
Like, what? That's insane. That's a completely insane arrangement. It's villainous. Speaking of villainous, you have just obtained documents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation detailing the ongoing behavior of the Biden Justice Department and how they targeted the right. What did you learn this week?
Well, specifically, it's relative to Jack Smith, the special counsel, And what we learned is it was much more, his investigation was much more expansive, much broader than we thought. The 180 individuals were subpoenaed. And I always go back and say, remember what we know about Jack Smith. Jack Smith is the guy who got the gag order on President Trump. He's the guy who raided President Trump's home. His investigations, his special counsel investigations were the ones who threatened what looks to me like almost a bribe of one of the defendants' counsel. Jack Smith is the guy who two of his deputies came and we deposed. Both of them took the fifth, 171 times, 173 times, took the fifth to questions like, was the special counsel's investigation a political in nature designed to undermine and hurt the president? We take the fifth to that question. Another question, how many other people, other members of Congress did you surveil? They took the fifth to that question. And of course, we learned just a few weeks ago that it was 8 United States senators who they were getting the phone records of. Jack Smith's special counsel. So now we learn it's broader than that. We learned that the coordination between the January 6th committee and the special counsel, Jack Smith's special counsel investigation, where the January 6th committee just handed over transcripts, information they got, they just turned over to Jack Smith. So this is pretty serious stuff. And the hundreds of people in and around the government, in and around President Trump, who they were looking into, I think is pretty troubling when you think about the history of what they did. You think about the guys who, two of his lieutenants who came to work for Jack Smith prior to joining the special counsel team, they were the guys who took Scott Perry's phone. A sitting member of the United States Congress took his phone, member of a separate and equal branch of the government. So yes, all that is now starting to come forward because of the good work of Kash Patel and Attorney General Bondi and getting information to us.
But it'd be one thing if any of those members of Congress was credibly accused of having committed a crime or something for them to be investigated by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. It's another thing entirely when all of these documents seem to reveal that it's normal political conversations, normal political organization, normal scrutiny of elections that's being criminalized by the United States Department of Justice. In other words, like these documents, as far as I'm concerned, Jim Jordan, demonstrate that they were using the government as a weapon to attack Republicans, their political opponents.
No, exactly. And that's it. It was all about going after your political foes, all about trying to prevent President Trump from ever running again, forever being president again. Yes. And the good news is it didn't work because the American people, just like they're seeing through this shutdown charade, saw through what Jack Smith, what the Merrick Garland, Biden Justice Department was up to. And I think the country has now rightly figured out that this was really a 10-year process because you go clear back to 2015, 2016, when they spied on President Trump's campaign. The Clinton campaign hired the law firm Perkins Coie, who then funneled the money to this public relations firm, Fusion GPS, who then hired a foreigner, Christopher Steele, who wrote this garbage document called the dossier, which was complete BS. And yet, Jim Comey and the FBI used that document as a basis to go get warrants to spy on the other party's campaign. And then from then on, it just took off, and you saw this lawfare weaponization just go. And that's what we're now beginning to get more details about in so many ways.
So, Congressman, to what extent do you think they were going for broke to stop Trump from returning to office for this very reason? Like, in other words, we would have never found any of this out were it not for the fact that Donald Trump is president again and that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are leading the FBI. We would have none of this information right now. So
totally true.
How much of this was dedicated to preventing this kind of oversight and accountability?
It was both. It was dedicated to preventing Trump from getting back in office because they were out to get the president from the get-go. And then once that he was, the nominee, Jack Smith gets named special counsel, then it's once President Trump declared after the midterm elections in 22 that he was going to run again, then it was all about preventing him from getting there because they were against him and making sure if someone else is in office, Democrats in office, we would never find out all this information. It was all of that. And they went to, like I said, we referred John Brennan last week when this all started. We referred him because he lied to Congress. You're not supposed to lie, but you're definitely not supposed to lie when you're under oath talking to the United States Congress. Violation of 18 U.S.C. 1001, and John Brennan did that. He told us the dossier was no way used. He pushed for it not to be included in the intelligence community assessment. Only problem is Tulsi Gabbard declassified a report from the House Intelligence Committee, which says exactly the opposite. In fact, in that report, they relate an incident where a CIA official goes up to Mr. Brennan back in 2016 and says, Director, this dossier doesn't hold up. There's no underlying intelligence to really support this. It's garbage. And Brennan goes, yeah, but doesn't it ring true? And he pushed forward to actually be in the intelligence community report when he told us just the opposite. So we don't do many of these referrals, but when the facts are that clear, we think it's warranted. And so we sent that to the Justice Department and said, this guy should be prosecuted.
Let me vocalize something that I see in our chat, and I definitely hear all the time about Congress and investigations, and I know you've heard it before too, Congressman, which is basically like, oh, this is great. We find out all this information. We know they're abusive. It seems with each passing week we find out more reports of their abuses, but nothing ever happens. Nothing ever happens.
Yeah.
Now, one, let me dispute that claim on my own, which is I've already pointed out. We're in an administration now where we are seeing forward positive traction on accountability on some very high-profile people. Prosecutions of Comey, Letitia James, John Bolton.
Yep.
They're actively doing it. The role that you play in this, it does seem, as far as I can tell, you've got the oversight capacity here.
Right.
And now you've made criminal referrals. It does go into the hands of the Justice Department for the next
exactly.
steps. Is that right?
Right. You got separate and equal branches of government. We're the legislative branch. We're supposed to, do the budgets, pass the laws, and our constitutional duty to do oversight. So we do oversight, but we can't prosecute anyone. We can't indict anyone. All we can do is get the facts, then use those facts to change law if we need to, use those facts to impact the funding of certain agencies if they're particularly involved in weaponization and we think it's better off they have less money, whatever. We can do all that, and then we can also say, here is someone we think did wrong or lied to us or whatever. We're going to refer that to the Justice Department. As I said, we don't do that very often. It's got to be clearly there. The facts do. They got to demonstrate that it actually took place. With Mr. Brennan, we think it did. But you're right. This Justice Department, it is night and day. Pam Bondi, Kash Patel versus Merrick Garland and Chris Wray, night and day. And they are saying we're going to hold people accountable. We're not going to do what the left is accusing President Trump of retribution and actually weaponizing the government now on his own. Yes. He's not doing that. Just holding people accountable. Jim Comey is one of the central